for us as a vendor in the industry, it is on us to provide the solutions, to give recommendations, to show solutions. Hey, this is the way we could solve that problem. It's our job, and we are working on that on meteocontrol for sure.
Well, there's never really been a time that the marketplaces for solar and storage are ever really standing still. I think it's very true that 2026 is a time of transition for the industry. And with new challenges come new opportunities as well. And some of them are novel and some can be particularly valuable. And to unearth some of these opportunities, I'm very pleased to be joined by Rouven Lenhart. He's an Executive Vice President at meteocontrol. Rouven, thanks for joining me.
It is a pleasure to being here. Thanks for the invitation, Jonathan.
Well, let's really look at some of these business opportunities, right? There's a lot of solar and storage companies out at the moment assessing the marketplace that's in front of them and looking what opportunities are emerging. And some of them are new, I believe. When you look across Europe, year on year, the marketplace for solar itself is pretty flat. It is declining in some places, like established markets like Germany, but after a period of very rapid growth. When you look at Europe, where do you see the most promising opportunities at the moment?
Yeah, first of all, we all know we are coming from a phase for many years, 5, 6, 7 years, where everything was just booming. The prices went down. There was cash more or less for free. So everybody was investing in solar because it was economically very, very beneficial. And now for 1.5 years or so, many things have changed. It is the cost for capital increased a lot. There is many concerns about cybersecurity. There are all the time new regulations coming up in most of the matured markets. We have political uncertainties. So look at what is going around the globe. Yeah. So, and all these things create concerns. And concerns is like poison for investments. And on top of that, we have new technologies coming in. Everybody's talking about storage, which brings new opportunities, new technologies, but there is not much of experience. How does it work? Is it really beneficial? All these kind of things. What about the grid stability, grid connection? So all this big puzzle is for the investors and the stakeholders in the industry hard to assess, hard to understand. So what is the right decision to be taken now? And nobody wants to make mistakes. But of course, there are opportunities. And to be honest, me personally, I remain still optimistic for the future. Because as you rightly said, in some regions, we can see a decline in the market. But often there is a misunderstanding, whether it's really a decline or it's just a stabilization of the market, because we are coming from a boom phase for a long time. Everything just went up. And in Europe, in core Europe, in Central Europe, we have super dynamic markets, for example, in Italy. Also, France is still very promising. They implement new rules, new business models are coming up. The UK, for many years, it was a stable market, more a finance market with portfolios being shifted around. But now there are new installations. Look at Ireland, for example. A lot of things, many things happen. Eastern Europe, super dynamic. In the past, we had markets like Hungary, Poland, which is a bit slower than before, but there are new markets coming up, like Romania, Bulgaria. And we should not forget where the investors, the project developers are coming from. Look at Scandinavia. There are pension funds, Baltics. There are very professional companies doing the business across Europe. So as a company like Meteocontrol, we have to be careful not to focus too much on the highest volumes of projects happening in a particular market. We have to be open to go across the borders and to look where the promising stakeholders are. And they are everywhere, because we have enough projects across Europe.
So one of the challenges that solar developers are facing at the moment is price cannibalization. This really large fluctuation in wholesale electricity prices, negative for more and more hours of the day. Of course, that opens the door for batteries and energy storage. How encouraging is that, the emergence of batteries as a more mature technology?
Yeah, for me, there is no question. It is absolutely mandatory that we bring this new technology, storage technology, into the game. As you rightly said, so there are so many uncertainties for the investors, just purely for PV, because of nobody can plan in the long run whether the investment into the asset remains beneficial. So the margins are tiny, there is price fluctuation, capital cost, and so on. And with the storage technology, it opens the doors for so many new business models, from small scale self-consumption, ancillary service in front of the meter. And it helps to solve one major challenge we have in most of the matured markets with a high volume of renewable energy like Germany, grid stability. And the storage technology definitely can be part of the solution.
And you mentioned kind of new business models. That applies to kind of solar project developers, particularly in the C&I space as well. I heard just recently that we're going to see some kind of new types of projects emerging, and that we need to really for the development of the next phase of the industry. And that's where project developers are looking really specifically at the needs of their customers, like, is it reducing peak demand, kind of peak shaving? Are we feeding into EV infrastructure? You know, what are you seeing in terms of that development, that solar and storage can help meet customer demands, particularly in the C&I space?
Yeah. Particularly in the C&I space, what is the driver for people running a business? It is because they are not naturally people knowing a lot of the energy stuff. They just need energy to produce their goods, as a simple example. So what is the driver? It's just purely the economics. And we have to see it as a development, because having a look on the technology being available, there are so many different things we can do. But at the moment, we are right at the beginning. So my experience shows when talking to potential customers, or what kind of projects are being realized at the moment in C&I, it is quite simple. The people want to reduce their energy bill. So what is the closest thing we can do? We can increase the grade of self-consumption. Of course, the next step could be, okay, I have my own energy here. I store it, I use it when I need it, but I also have EV charging stations for my company cars. Can I use the energy for this as well? Oh, I have some machines creating inrush currents, which brings me to the next level of energy prices, in simple words. So can I cut this? Can I use my own energy to balance my energy consumption? But at the end, it has to be commercially beneficial for them. I see a lot of potential, but on the other hand, to be fair, I see concerns, because for many owners of facilities, this is unfortunately not the major topic they have on the table right now. So the potential is huge. It starts right now. We see more and more projects. We see interest coming from the industry, but it is slowly, gradually, it develops. In the utility scale, it's totally different, because from the beginning on, we have a huge potential just to make money.
And what's interesting about the evolution towards these kind of really solution-based systems, right, is that it's potentially less impacted by policy, by where politics are going, because you're really producing clean energy just to serve consumer demands. Do you think that's potentially a true logic?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Logically, it totally makes sense, but do never underestimate the German bureaucracy. In particular, having a look on the German market situation, which is one of the major markets for BESS. Technically, it sounds super easy. I have, for example, on the roof, I have my solar plant, but I have to waste the energy because the grid operator makes me stop to feed in. So I install a battery system. However, you always have the interconnection to the grid if you want or not. And there are so complex regulations about metering, who is responsible for what. Do not underestimate the challenges to bring a C&I storage system into a commercial application to the grid in Germany. And this is similar to other markets as well. So there are obstacles, challenges concerning the regulation part.
Okay, it's not
This is a fact. We don't want that. Technology-wise, it seems to be super easy, but the reality looks a bit different. But we will overcome that. Yeah, it is similar to what we have seen back in the time when the solar was right at the beginning. There was a gap of or lack of experience, and the grid operators, and I understand that, by the way. They don't know what happens if there are hundreds or even thousands of these kind of systems in their area where they are responsible for. So I'm pretty optimistic because technology is there over the time. We will have the experience. Standards will be established, and then it becomes a no-brainer.
So it's not as simple as it first looks.
Nope.
But thankfully, you're hopeful that these kind of hurdles will be overcome.
And it is for us as a vendor in the industry, it is on us to provide the solutions, to give recommendations, to show solutions. Hey, this is the way we could solve that problem. Yeah. It's our job, and we are working on that on meteocontrol for sure.
Well, let's look more internationally then. Globally, in 2026 is very much shaping up to be a year when there will be actually a market decline when it comes to solar alone on a global level. We'll see how that plays out, of course. And China, as always, is the powerhouse in all of that. Where goes China, goes the rest of the world when it comes to solar in terms of capacity installations. But there really are pockets of very encouraging growth internationally. When you look across in your global capacity, the marketplaces, what marketplaces do you think are attractive in 2026?
There are many. It's not the one and only region where I personally do see the highest potential. But we have to have the global view on things because, as you rightly said, there are some major markets we are used to have a good volume and growth. They are not declining, by the way, but there is a time of consolidation. So the market turns into a phase of, let's say, stabilization. Yeah, we will see less growth, but we need growth to grow as a company. But there are many other super interesting markets, matured markets like Australia, for example. It's one of the most dynamic markets, in my personal opinion, when it comes to hybrid technology, solar, BESS, very, very dynamic energy market where so many different business models. There are other markets like Latin America. There are so many countries. It's not the one country, but many countries right at the beginning. Yeah? So the theoretical potential is very, very high. We as meteocontrol, we decided many, many years ago that we cannot or we should not focus on Europe only because there will be a time that the European home market becomes a bit more challenging. And this is what we did a couple of years ago. So we established subsidiaries with full team and customer support around the globe. And now this pays off. And also Africa. Do not forget Africa. It will always be a challenging region, except I'm not talking about South Africa as a country. I'm talking about the continent. Dozens of countries, and they all need energy. And especially solar PV, you can deploy so easily, so fast. Theoretical potential is there. So to answer your question, there are plenty of markets, plenty of regions where you can make business.
Well, you mentioned Africa, and of course, we're starting from a very low installed base in Africa. But I think one of the interesting and encouraging developments is that it's also to meet energy needs, right? Which is often energy security. I actually just saw the other day a meteocontrol project, I think delivered with IBC Solar in South Africa, which was a hybrid system coupling solar with a diesel generator. And right, that's just meeting the needs of the local people. And I think that's an encouraging development. How do you reflect on that?
Definitely it is encouraging because you're doing the right things. Yeah, you bring the electricity to the people. And when talking about Africa, you have to understand, and of course I know that you understand that, it's a totally different situation for the people. In Europe or most of the other developed countries, we are used to have electricity almost all the time and everywhere. In Africa, it's different. You have a grid, you have electricity, but not all the time, not 24 hours. So people are used to run diesel generators in a small scale, but also in a very large scale, just to ensure that electricity is there to run their machines, to make their business. Meanwhile, we have the technology to run these hybrid applications. I'm a technician by heart, yeah, so I like complex projects. Just the simple, okay, I build a solar plant, feed energy to the grid and earn money. This is pure business. But in Africa, you can make both. You can realize complex projects with your knowledge about the technology, but at the same time, economically, it can be beneficial for the people to make their economy grow. To get reliable energy and cheap or competitive energy prices.
And an economic story, economic development story as well. Now, looking at these globalized marketplaces, I understand meteocontrol internally has made some structural moves in some of these marketplaces that are most encouraging. Can you tell me about how that works?
Yeah. So meteocontrol's strategy always has been to be globally present. Most of the companies are claiming to have the global presence, but often they just have sales dudes roaming around, but then everything is being served from a centralized point from headquarters or so. Meteocontrol strategy from the beginning on was real physical presence, to be where the customers are, where the projects are. But then we grew. And when you reach a certain volume of projects per year, you need a reliable structure. And this is what we did. So we grew with our business, our staff also has grown. And when you reach a certain point, you have too many people. So you need more clear structure, you need responsibility. So we implemented also a leadership team. But when it came to product strategy or to understand customers' needs, many decisions have been made in the headquarters still, which is okay because you can harmonize many things, but you have too many topics to deal with in the headquarters. I have to take care for the needs in Australia, in South Africa, in Latin America, in the Middle East, and so on and so forth. So there is a certain risk that you lose the connection to the real needs, to the culture, to the business rules, the unwritten business rules. So that's why we decided, okay, we have to make our subsidiaries more independent because we trust our people. We have good people in our teams, and they have a better knowledge about the market needs, the culture, and so forth, than our guys at the headquarters. So we decided to implement real general managers in all our subsidiaries to run the business more independently from the headquarters. And this was a big move for us because you have to give up some control. But I'm 100% convinced it will pay off. And our customers, and this is what the most important thing is, they will benefit from it because they get served in their way, with their culture. Their needs will be more in the focus.
Well, one of the topics that's really right across the industry on a global level is digitization and artificial intelligence, right? It seems like you can't have a conversation in this...
Everybody's about AI.
Right, in this industry at the moment, but I think also more generally, you can't avoid it. Yeah. But there are potential significant benefits in solar. And also for solar in just supplying artificial intelligence, this increase in electricity demand from data centers. How far do you think we are along on that journey, right? Meteocontrol for 22 years has been working with energy and digitization, essentially, or 25 years, my apologies.
Yeah.
So how far do you think we're along on this journey to really being able to put AI effectively into place in the solar and energy storage business?
To cover the topic AI, we should plan another session because there are so many things we could talk about. Sure. Okay, but there are multiple things. Of course, you're right. Meteocontrol is in the business for 25 years. There are so many amazing ideas on what you can achieve in the future by using AI. Automation of energy management, for example. But we should never forget what the people need now, at the moment. And when I'm talking to our customers, it is all about efficiency. Because margins, this is what we have discussed earlier, it is more and more tough to have a beneficial business model. Labor cost is a challenge, or even to find proper staff. And before talking about the long-term vision, this is what we should do, to be visionary. But we should not forget the pains and the needs our customers or the stakeholders in the industry are facing right now. And super simple things like automation of workflows, for example. Why I, as a person, should have a deep look in certain data points, performance of a renewable energy asset. I always say, let the tool do it for you and just tell me what I should do, what kind of action I should take, as an example. And this is so close. So there is not much needed in terms of development to help our customers. So we should see it in different steps, not forget what the needs are right now at the moment, and at the same time, what theoretically in the long run is possible. And then we are talking about amazing things like fully automated energy management systems, bots talking to each other, dealing about energy pricing. Grid operators can benefit to predict what's going on tomorrow in 1 week in their grid area, and all these kind of things. So AI will definitely be a game changer in the industry. I'm 100% convinced.
First, let's focus on efficiency.
Let's focus on the pains and needs our customers have right now.
It's a good perspective to have. And actually, I understand Meteocontrol will be hosting an AI summit later this year. Rouven Lenhart, Executive Vice President at Meteocontrol, thank you very much for joining me today and for having this conversation. I might have to come back to you to speak about AI at a future date.
Definitely. Feel invited to the next AI summit this year in Augsburg, in our headquarters. It will be an interesting thing. Thank you so much for the invitation. It was a pleasure to be here.
My pleasure indeed. And make sure you stay in touch with Meteocontrol via their LinkedIn page, or here at YouTube. Do like and subscribe to the program. Thank you very, very much for your attention and joining another session of MC Chats.